Welcome back to CIO Central. This is the second episode of the interview with Mary Gendron, CIO of Qualcomm. Mary has more interesting thoughts to share with you today, and I know you're going to enjoy the second installment of our program. I'm very happy to be talking to you today with my industry colleague and good friend, Mary Gendron, CIO of Qualcomm. Prior to Qualcomm, Mary served as the CIO of both Aspira and Celestica. She also held VP positions at Motorola and the Nielsen Company earlier in her career. Welcome to CIO Central, Mary.
Thank you, Bill. Very excited to have our conversation.
I want to thank you and Qualcomm for being such fantastic customers of NetApp. We really appreciate your business.
Need you guys. You're absolutely essentially critical for us delivering on our commitments to our customers.
As CIOs, we're kind of expected to understand what's going on in our businesses, having a comprehensive understanding of how the business actually operates. And one of the areas that I think most companies have been, I don't want to say negatively impacted, but certainly impacted in one way or another through a supply chain from the beginning of this pandemic all the way to the chip issues and chip supply from semiconductors in the recent past. So we've felt it. We felt it as a supplier that requires material to come in and build and ship our products. But also we've seen it, Mary, in the software supply chain being disrupted. Events like SolarWinds, where we're deploying enterprise-grade software, a lot of this network management type tools, and these tools get compromised as part of our software supply chain. Where do you see this going? How does this evolve? Where does this go from here over the next couple of years?
A supply chain is at the core of every enterprise. I think the only solace that we can really take now in today's world is that we've kind of gone through this global pandemic, and even this situation of the increased cybersecurity situation. I'm going to call it a situation, or the increased threat because of our more connected world that cybersecurity presents itself. So I don't think it's unique to industry. I don't think it's unique to enterprise. I think we're all in this together. And what I've seen happening, which is really encouraging, is that, again, the level of collaboration is fundamentally important. So the choice of collaborating or not, people use that buzzword, collaboration. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. That's the name of the day. No, it really translates into business outcomes and business results, because it means your ability to pick up the phone, send that text, send that email to your vendor, to your customer, to the network, to ask questions or get insights, get help, make choices. I mean, the ability of your organization to interact and collaborate most effectively with their ecosystem is of critical importance. And I think I see that now more than ever. The fragility of the supply chain, probably looming to some, but to others that have this in their DNA, or always understood the importance of great collaboration, to be perfectly honest, they see this as, that's okay. We got this muscle. We just got to use it, and we got to use it more effectively. So I think there's a lot of, because of this whole interconnected world and our increased reliance on the value chain that extends well beyond our enterprise. It's always been there, but the speed with which things are happening and the amount of connectivity that is existing in the ecosystem today increases the importance of that collaboration or integrity in the connections. So you brought up SolarWinds. I mean, no one is entirely protected from something like a SolarWinds. Our ability is to have the best defenses possible, obviously, but if and when something happens, that we can move quickly and reliably with that connected universe, right? Ecosystem.
Yeah, I love your comment about developing a competency, basically, in that uncertainty, learning to use that muscle, as you said, and using that maybe as an advantage to be able to thrive amidst the chaos that comes from that. What's the next disruptive IT trend that you're sensing? And how do you advise us all to get ready for that and deal with that next shift?
I know people are going to think that this is a commercial because I work for Qualcomm, but it is real and it is happening. And that is all about the 5G, the speed and the integrity with which 5G presents itself. We've removed barriers, so we're not having to move data around like we did because of the 5G capability. 5G allows the enablement of edge computing. What edge computing means is using your data at the location where the data is consumed. What's going to be interesting to keep our eyes open about is we've enabled the technology, but we really haven't seen what the use of that technology will present itself. Like, how would that technology be used in solving business problems? We really don't know yet because people haven't really had time to kind of get their head wrapped around the speed and the edge computing capability.
I think it's interesting the synergies and the partnerships between companies, because when I hear you talk about 5G, a couple of our large customers are pushing our carrier networks, pushing 5G out to the edge compute in the carrier networks. You're providing this incredible engineering core at the chip level technology to enable the devices and the networks to take advantage of that. And then companies like NetApp are driving the data fabric that allows you to interconnect when you need to backhaul data, allow data to sit at the edge and run with it when you need it and pull it back through the data fabric. So it's interesting how our industries kind of work together and play together to bring something really impactful out of all this for the customer.
Disruption is always here and always around us. It just doesn't come and go. It's always here. So keeping our eye on that evolution is our primary responsibility for the benefit of our customers and for the benefit of our organization. So I think that's, to your point, the collaboration and the remix of industry relationships, how they may change as a result of this 5G enablement or edge computing enablement. We really don't know what is going to present itself, but there'll be things that are changing.
Good advice and good insights. Thank you. All right, I want to go a little further abroad and talk about diversity in general. Okay, and I think, I think today as leaders, we have a much better understanding of how vital this notion of diversity is to enabling more adaptive, more innovative, more competitive teams overall. And when I'm talking about diversity, I mean inclusive of gender, age, ethnicity, culture, background, education, learning styles, how you learn versus how I learn. And to me, the product of all of those things, which is diversity of thought in how you think about things and how you see the world and how you process information. What advice and experience can you share on being open to change and kind of accessing the right networks to achieve this competitive advantage?
I think our listening skills are very important to improve. I think our listening skills with empathy are very important. And why is that? Is because it's the engagement. You engage people on an individual level. You engage the person. You don't engage a team. You don't engage a company. You engage a person. And in order to get that level of engagement, everybody has to be seen. And I think the pandemic, ironically, probably rose this to our awareness much more than ever because of all the complex situations people were dealing with. So it's like everybody is an individual. We say that so often, but we rarely really understand how that impacts the way you build teams, the way you manage teams, the way you build companies. And if you're listening and empathetic and listening to their different voices, aligning the passions and the objectives to a common goal, so the intent is aligned, so people aren't being disruptive, but they're being constructive, right? So that helps with that embracing of that diverse voice. So you're really bringing an orchestra together. You use that analogy all the time. Like an orchestra, makes up so many different instruments, but everybody plays their own instrument in their own way. But when you pull it all together, it makes for beautiful music. I think you got to think that way in diversity in the company. At the workplace. Don't try and make everybody sound the same way. Let them have their voice. Let them listen to it. The skills have to be developed to ensure we're teaching our employees, or we're helping our employees understand how to have those constructive conversations. And that's probably the primary focus. But empathy and listening are at the core. If you're not listening, and if you're not willing to listen, I think you start off with one foot in the rear view mirror. So people often ask me questions about diversity and then innovation. They link those two conversations together, and I feel like that's where you're going to, because it's not just diversity for diversity's sake. Again, I work for a competitive business. I'm here to make money. I'm a capitalist. Mm-hmm. So I do diversity not because it's the right thing to do. I do it because it's the only way to do it to drive that upside on the revenue side. I was once a CIO of an organization that had a data center in downtown Manhattan, and we had to move that data center. We had to move it because it was going to save the company millions of dollars. We had a mainframe there that had to get off like the 28th floor. I forget what floor it was. And we had all this plan and this schedule. And the team came very sheepishly and said, Mary, we're not going to hit our timeline. We can't get the permit from the city to be able to back up the trailer, to get it on that street, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the other thing I know about downtown New York is, don't they have a parade or a demonstration like every week? And they're like, where are you going? I'm like, just think a little differently. I'm sure you can find out who has the permit this week and ride on them. Well, they all started laughing at me. They thought I was crazy. But I was trying to just like, think about this. Let's make it happen. Well, it turns out they didn't have to take my idea. They were glad not to take my idea. But magically, they came up with another idea that worked better, and we got and met our schedule, and we saved the company millions of dollars. Now, I didn't contribute to that solution, but as a leader, I think I kind of gave them permission to think crazy, to color outside the lines. It's just an example of, what does diversity mean? Well, diversity means like you're listening better, you're hearing different voices, and you're thinking about different ideas.
If you boil this down to a numbers game, you can still fail, right? And we've talked about that because you and I have both been at companies where we set, okay, we're going to bring in a certain percentage of these folks in this category, and great, we've hired them and check that box, right? But if you don't provide the right environment, and certainly this has been true with women in tech, they don't really have a chance to advance, and they get frustrated with the business, say nothing's happening here and I'm going to go somewhere else. How do we bring out real change and meaningful, sustainable change in that regard? So we don't treat this as a numbers game, but it actually changes the business.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Bill, because I think that, as I said, you get what you measure, all that fun stuff, and that's all true. And like you said, we've done that, been there, done that, and are doing that. But one thing is people don't stick around, right? So you get the number at the beginning, and the number fastly gets the churn on the number you don't necessarily see or observe or take note of, or they don't move. In other words, they don't get progression inside the company, or they get stalled. There are some society barriers or structure that has kept people back. So I think it does take some reach back and pull through, really give help with that opportunity and help with that momentum. Earlier in my career, I was of the opinion, just work hard. So I've always been a minority. So I'm like, stop your whining and complaining, just put your head down, get results, and make things happen. And I'll be very honest, lately in the latter half of my career, I'm like, oh, wait a second. There are some structural barriers for some women to make it through. And so I think we have to recognize that. I tend to be a pragmatic implementer. I just want to see progress. I say, so one step forward is way better than one step back. So often people complain about women's advancement and progression and say, well, we don't have the pipeline. The pipeline's not there. The talent's not there. Like, we just don't. And I pushed back on that excuse pretty hard. And I'm like, come on. I said, we're all leaders of essentially big organizations. You got to find one capable woman. And I challenge all of you. There is one capable woman today that's in your organization that you don't have to recruit. You don't have to do anything to. You can find one woman today and reach back and pull her up and take a chance with her. I challenge us all to find one woman. And if we can find one woman and we all do it, then that'll start the ball rolling. But it's just like people get defeated before we ever even get started. Well, the pipeline's not there. We can't possibly change that by these percentages. There's not the hundreds of people. No, I'm not looking for hundreds. I'm looking for one. Let's just make progress one at a time. Let's not try and conquer the world. The 50-50 is not the right answer, by the way. It's just make sure that you're removing barriers so at least one more woman gets the option. Because I'm sure there's one woman in your organization that is dying for progress, that is sitting there waiting with bated breath. And she just needs the courage sometimes and the support of her team to pull through. You have to be ready and willing to hear and listen to another voice. And it might not sound like your voice, but that's okay. That's what you want. All right.
I'm sitting here, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking of the hundreds, maybe thousands of people that'll listen to this conversation we're having. And I can tell you what's going to happen. Several of the folks, this is really going to resonate, and they're going to say, gosh, what Mary's saying makes so much sense. And they're going to look back into their organizations and say, let me think where we are, and can I go do that? Can I execute on that? And I'd like to think that what you've just said with our viewership will result in incredible pull-through and opportunity for people that might not have otherwise been touched by this. So thank you for saying that today. This has just been an awesome discussion today. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I really enjoyed my time here with you today, Bill. All the best to you and NetApp. Great supplier of Qualcomm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Really appreciate it. That's all for today from NetApp CIO Central. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember to stay data-driven.